Okay, we should be live. I had to reconnect all my USB ports in the back of the computer, and for some reason the webcam wasn't coming on. I had to disconnect it and reconnect it a few times. Okay, so good evening everyone. We are back with Forespoken. Everybody's favorite game, the game that keeps on giving. So, you know what I forgot to do? There is a network switch that I'm using that I only started using it a few weeks ago, but I noticed that ever since I've been using it, there have been instances where either I'd go offline for a few seconds and that interrupts the stream, or people will complain about buffering. So I forgot to switch over to the other network switch. So I'm using a 10 to 8 port, but I need to switch back to that TP link that I have, which is also an 8 port. They're both unmanaged, they both can't do PoE. But anyway. The other thing, that there will be a video, probably next week, for the Crucial T700. So I picked up one of these at Micro Center today. This is the world's fastest SSD. There's currently no SSD that has faster sequential read-write, and the 4K random read and random write are, I think on this one, they're basically as fast as it can get. So in terms of latency and overall performance, this is currently the fastest drive. So we have Forespoken installed on this T700 from Crucial's a 2 terabyte PCIe Gen 5 SSD, just to kind of show. Hold on, where's my? I might have to mute the game. The game is okay. There we go. Actually, you know what? When I switch out of the game audio goes away. That's nice. All right, but what I wanted to do here, X670E Aorus Master. What GPU are you using? This is going to be on the AMD Ryzen, or Radeon AMD Ryzen. Radeon HD 7870. Did I just say 7870? It's been a long day. No, this is going to be on the RX 7900 XTX Sapphire Nitro. So this box is not the Nitro box, for those that have a keen eye. This is the reference card. The made by AMD edition is in this box. But I'm actually using the Nitro. So this Nitro from Sapphire is going to be the test card that we use to test FSR3 at 4K resolution. But what I wanted to do here real quick was to go over the storage, because this game is one of the few games, I think the only other game is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I may have to get Ratchet and Clank next month, or hopefully there'll be like a Steam sale or something. Oh, you've got the XFX XTX. Yeah, that's a good card too. Did you get that one from Best Buy, or did you get that from Newegg or Amazon? Best Buy typically sells a lot of XFX cards if you're based in the US. Where is the... Hold on. Okay, what I wanted to show real quick is on the motherboard. So, just to kind of show, this motherboard is the motherboard that we're using, and it has 2 Gen 5. Oh, Amazon, you got it for $8.99. Oh, that's a really good deal. This motherboard, there will be a video probably next week. I've already done the filming. I just need to do the editing, featuring like an overview of the T700 from Crucial, because one of the things about Forespoken and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, these games feature... Oh, there's lots of buffering? Well, I'm not showing any dropped frames. So I don't see anything on my end. Pete, you may want to try using a different resolution instead of source. Source is going to be 1440p, 60 FPS, but downscaled from 4K. I try not to stream in 4K because I don't want a lot of people to run into buffering problems, because the bandwidth for a 4K 60 stream is actually pretty intense. You haven't seen anything? Haven't seen anything? What do you mean? You guys aren't seeing the board? Or you guys aren't seeing the video? I think, no buffering? Okay. Okay, so we should be good. At least on my end, I don't really see any notification there's anything wrong. So we'll move on here with this. So the thing about Forespoken is Forespoken features direct storage. So direct storage is able to capitalize on kind of minimizing the effectiveness of your system RAM and offloading some of that work. Or, I guess, not really offloading the work. It's really the ability for the CPU to directly access the game assets straight from the SSD without having to do a whole lot of man-in-the-middle transfers between the RAM. So, the way Forespoken works is the game assets are constantly being streamed in and out through the CPU. So the newer version of direct storage, or people sometimes call it direct storage 2.0, that actually uses the GPU to do decompression, but Forespoken is using direct storage 1.0. So that means that the decompression of the game assets is being done on the CPU. So in theory, the faster your SSD, the faster the game will load, much more effectively than on a game that does not feature direct storage. So that is one of the reasons why having a Gen 5 drive with Forespoken or games that use direct storage could be beneficial. We're going to test that. Your stream keeps buffering. You're the second person to mention that. What if you guys try watching it at 1080p instead of 1440p? Because I'm not seeing anything that's telling me that I'm buffering or dropping frames or anything. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the issue is. Try a different, try 1080p for a while and see if it still does it. Oh, it was buffering for Met also? Strange. So we're going to test, not only are we going to test FSR3, we're going to test PCI Gen 5. We're going to test the new fastest SSD in the world, the Crucial T700, with Forespoken, because Forespoken uses direct storage. We're going to see, is there any kind of significant difference in terms of the way the game behaves? Because this game is notorious for being extremely hard to run and extremely inconsistent in terms of its performance across the board. So what I have done here is, so those of you that have been watching me for a while, you guys know that I'm using an Aorus Master X670E. So this is the motherboard that I'm using. And as of today, I have finally installed a Gen 5 SSD in the top slot. So I'm actually now using this massive heatsink because I bought the T700 that without the heatsink. If you want to buy one that comes with the heatsink from Crucial, I think it's like $20 to $30 more. I forget the exact price difference. It is more expensive to buy it with the heatsink, obviously. But I would recommend, for most people who are looking to get a really fast SSD, if you have, unless you have a motherboard that has the heat spreader on the top and bottom of the SSD, then I would prefer, or I would recommend that you get the SSD with the heatsinks. Meaning, unless you have a motherboard that features the top heatsink like the Aorus Master, but in addition to that, the underside also has a heat spreader with a metal plate underneath it. So if you have one of those, then you can go ahead and get an SSD that does not have the heatsink. If you do not, meaning if you have a heatsink with the motherboard, but it doesn't have one on the underside. Like it only has a heatsink that will sit on top of the drive, meaning the NAND flash chips on the underside of the. Maybe I should just draw it out at this point, just so everybody's clear on what I'm talking about, because the reason why I'm using the first Gen 5 drive that I have with its included heatsink is because that one doesn't have, or the motherboard that I installed it in doesn't have an actual underside heatsink. So let's go into Paint here real quick. So what I mean by that is if you have a heatsink, so let's think of this as an M.2 2280 form factor. This is the top of it. So typically, if you're talking about PCIe Gen 5, we're going to talk about the PCIe 5, either Crucial T700, Inland TD510, I forgot the one from Seagate. There's the Fire CUDA 540, and then there's another one from Corsair, and there's another one from some other one, I forget. But if you have one of these, and then there's like a Corsair one, I think Corsair, I don't remember the name. Corsair something, and who else? Kingston has one. Kingston Gen 5 something. You guys get what I'm saying. So anyway, if you have a Gen 5 SSD, I strongly recommend that you buy the version that includes the heatsink, unless you have a motherboard that has the underside. The reason why I'm saying that is because the T700 and the TD510, I have not tested the others, so I can't comment on those, but I assume they're all the same. All of these drives, they all include the exact same Phison E26 controller. So the little teeth are like right here, and there's the key. I think this is E key or something, but you guys get what I'm saying. So this is a Gen 5 drive. So this is, we're going to make this smaller. This is the E26. The Phison E26, that is the flash controller. This is the thing that generates like 80% of the heat. 80% of the heat on these really fast SSDs is concentrated on that E26 controller from Phison. The rest of the heat comes from the actual flash or the NAND flash. So you have these NAND flash chips from either Crucial or Samsung or whoever else. I think it's just really those two. Maybe Hynix makes NAND flash. But you got these. But the thing is, on the underside, you also have NAND flash. And the NAND flash on the bottom side of the SSD will get really hot unless it has some sort of heat spreader or aluminum heatsink or something on there, or active cooling like a fan or something. If it doesn't have that, then what's going to happen is your underside, like your top side with the heatsink from the motherboard will be okay, but the bottom side will be running really hot, like 65 Celsius or 70 Celsius under full load. So that's the reason why I strongly recommend, if you want a Gen 5 SSD, you're going to want to either purchase one with the included heatsink, because the included heatsink has a heat spreader that covers the bottom and the top. So only a few motherboards from my own research include the underside heat spreader. And the Aorus Master includes the underside heat spreader. Now the Aorus Elite AX from Gigabyte does not include the underside heat spreader. So that's the reason why when I got the TD10 or the Inland TD510, that one I purchased that with the heatsink because I was going to install it on the Aorus Elite, knowing that the Aorus Elite doesn't have an underside heat spreader. So just something to keep in mind for those that are wanting to either run a really, really fast Gen 5 SSD, either now or in the future. So So that's something to be aware of. So anyway, I just wanted to do like a public service announcement for those, because I don't want people buying these and then wondering why is it not that fast. You go and look at the temperatures and it's thermal throttling. So let me just check. I'm going to check the temperatures on mine with hardware info 64. And I'm expecting it to be around like 40 degrees something, because that's typically what it runs at. Let's see. Yeah, so mine is currently running 44 degrees Celsius with Forespoken running on it. So let's go back to the game now. So I moved Forespoken and a few other games like Lies of P and some of the newer games, like The Last of Us and I think Jedi Survivor. Basically any game that has to compile textures, you probably want those games to be installed on your fastest SSD. Because if you're doing shader compilation, it can take a long time, especially if you have an older CPU, but you don't want your storage to be a bottleneck and exacerbate the amount of time it takes to compile the shaders. So I strongly recommend putting the game on the fastest SSD that you have, whether that's a Gen 3 or a Gen 4, you know, or even a Gen 5. So anyway, so that's the storage aspect of this. Now let's get into the game itself and test FSR3. So we're gonna go to settings, graphics, and sure enough, there is a new option here for Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3, and it says AMD Fidelity Super Resolution 3 combines high quality image upscaling with frame generation. So it seems like FSR3 has added like kind of like DLAA or frame gen without needing to do the upscaling. So let's go ahead and turn this on. So notice how it now has a feature called native AA. Native AA. And then FSR3 frame generation is off. We're gonna go ahead and, well, let's leave it off for now. We'll turn it on in game. Actually, I need to fire up Afterburner. I just realized that Afterburner is not running. So that we can track the actual FPS change when we turn on this frame generation. So I don't know, I guess I need to turn off dynamic resolution. Dramatically adjust the resolution of 3. Let's turn this off. Okay, so dynamic is off. And I guess for the viewers that are watching this normally, you probably can't see things. So I have to make the rivet tuner larger. Maybe even larger. Is that large enough? I guess that's large. That looks pretty large to me. Alright, we'll just leave it like that. Native AA, FSR3. Okay, we're gonna do, what are the options here? Quality, balance, performance, ultra performance. These just look like the FSR2 options. So, okay, let's just go with, So did they combine the regular Fidelity FX sharpening or whatever it used to be called? CAS? No, that's contrast adaptive sharpening. Did they combine that and make that native AA? What is native AA? Is this like DLAA? That's interesting. You did the game at both native 1440 and with FSR3 plus frame gen. It did improve the latency a decent amount. Okay, let's try. Let's do. I'm just gonna do native first to see. Let's do native AA first, and then we'll just go from there, I guess. All right, let's test the loading times of the game. Let's see how long it takes to load. So we click continue, and we're in, just like that. Why are we already in combat? Notice the frame rate is at 41 frames per second. Oh, there's some enemy here. I forgot how to play again. Okay. So notice this is the frame rate. 47 frames per second. And this is native 4K, I think. Yeah, dynamic is turned off, and the game is running at 4K native. So let's do off. Render resolution 100, just to get a baseline. So we're doing about the same FPS. 40 something, almost 50 FPS. But see how the frame rate in this game, actually I might need to use a controller because this is very weird. This gameplay is strange. Let's see.
Looks like the coast is clear.
Okay, I kind of remember how to play. It always takes me like 30 seconds to figure out how to play this game. Okay. Do you have the RT on? Oh, good call. I didn't even check. Let's see. Yes, so Ray Trace Shadows is on and Ray Traced Ambient Occlusion is on. If we turn these off... Is this just standard? Fidelity? Oh, there's standard and there's fidelity and off. Let's just leave this on standard for now and temporal. So we're gonna basically, let's see how the game runs. Let's get a baseline of how the game runs. Fully maxed out, 4K native. So everything is maxed out except ray tracing. So we already looked at how the game... So with ray tracing on, everything fully maxed out, 4K native resolution, we're doing about 47 to 50 FPS. So now we're going to turn off RT, and now let's see what the frame rate looks like. You can see it's like 60. And then it just dropped. I said 60 and it dropped. Okay.
Open your eyes.
So it's about 50... It's like, what, 10 frames or so on average higher? Because we were seeing like 47 to 50. Now I'm seeing like 57 to 60. So... This is kind of... This is the baseline without RT. So now we turn on RT and we basically lose 10 frames. So let's turn this on and then on. And see how we just straight up lost 10 frames just by turning on ray tracing? And what's funny is, like Met is saying, the visuals, it's pointless to turn RT because the visuals don't even change. Like the game with RT on looks exactly the same as the game with RT off. Like, there's literally no difference. Like, there's absolutely... Look at this. Look at the ground. Look at the shadow. Look at Frey. Look at the cat with wings. Everything looks exactly the same with RT on, with RT off. This is like one of those memes. You guys remember the RTX on, RTX off memes? This is one of those memes where it would literally just be the same exact image twice, RTX on, RTX off, and it's literally the same image with no difference whatsoever. That's basically what Forespoken's ray tracing is. RT is kind of pathetic. Like, look at that. Look at this. Same shadow, same Frey, same cat with wings. It just did a backflip in midair. And, like, there's nothing different. Like, the only difference is you lose 10 frames. What? Wow. Fantastic ray tracing implementation, guys. This is a grade A right here. Okay, so, but like, all I know is the game runs a lot smoother while looking exactly the same without RT. But you can see, even with RT off, this game is so hard to run that even an XTX at 4K native resolution with no dynamic resolution scaling, it's only able to touch 60 and sometimes exceed 60, and then sometimes drop below 60. So it's literally on the line. Lazy Dev's just adding the settings to say the game has. Yeah. Just turn on something in the background that forces the GPU to do a ton of math calculations real quick, so that it pegs the GPU and it drops 10 FPS, and then call it RT. That's basically what this is. For visual quality, change ambient occlusion to fidelity FX. Okay, well, let's try that. Let's go back and turn on fidelity FX. Let's see how that looks. To be honest, it still looks the same. It still looks the same. This game continues to amaze me. You turn RT on, you lose 10 frames. The image quality looks exactly the same. You turn it off, the image quality looks exactly the same. You gain back your FPS. You turn on Fidelity FX, nothing really changes. There's probably such a minor difference that it's so minuscule and so hard to tell. Like I'm trying to see it. I'm literally trying to look for anything that stands out to me as different. All right, I'm looking at the grass. It looks, you know, like I don't get it. It looks the same. All right, let's turn that off again. Let's turn this back to standard. All right, let me look at the grass. So walk through the grass, look at the flowers, touch grass, ground yourself. It looks exactly the same. I don't see any difference. I don't see any difference whatsoever with the grass between Fidelity FX on versus standard. Like it literally looks the same. Like it's so minuscule. I don't see it. If you think about it, the only good RT implementation is the one they did in Cyberpunk. That's because it's basically sponsored game by Is Cyberpunk a Nvidia sponsored game though? Is it really Nvidia sponsored? I don't see a difference here. All right, let's move on. Let's turn everything on. Let's just turn everything on. Fidelity FX plus all the ray tracing. Everything on, max out. I want to make sure that all these sliders are all the way up. Okay, everything's up. This is I don't know if it's harder to run Fidelity FX or without it. We're gonna see what it does. Okay. It's literally the same performance with the RT on and on. Okay. Cyberpunk 27 is definitely NVIDIA sponsored. They wrote the path trace code for them. Okay, yeah, then that's definitely NVIDIA sponsored. If they really contributed to it in that way, then yeah. Okay, so up here, up near the atmosphere, where the air is clear, it almost touches 60 with ray tracing on and Fidelity FX, everything. So basically, let's hold on. I'm testing something here. Can I like put that thing on fire? I don't know. Okay, so it still drops to 40. Let's just go back down. Okay, now we can turn on frame generation to see if we can help fix this game and all of its FPS struggles. So everything's gonna stay on. Let's go up here. Let's go to Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3. We turn that on. We turn on frame generation, the magic. Let's see. All right, it's on. Let's see what it does. Whoa, okay. Okay. It just went 83 frames. But I'm noticing something weird in the MSI Afterburner. You guys notice that? It says the response time is 0.3. But look at the graph, though. Why is the frame time graph like that? It's like it's constantly reading some number. Alright, let me see how this feels, because this is... It says it's 85 frames. I don't know, does it really feel like 85 frames? Huh. It's like 90-something frames. This feels a little different. This doesn't feel like 90 frames to me for some reason. That is some weird frame graph, though. The response time says 0.2 milliseconds, but the graph is reading such a weird, like, okay, let's turn it off again. Here, look, I'm gonna turn it off. Look at that. It's like, you know what it looks like? So the 21 milliseconds is like the top of those little bars that keep showing up. It's like it's constantly going 22 to 0 so fast when FSR3 is on, or when frame generation is on, that it portrays it in that manner. It's not a straight line. Why is it up and down like that? Yeah, see, that's interesting. So 40, okay, 40, let's take a baseline. So about 50 FPS. 50 FPS. That's a good number. So now we turn on frame gen. We jump up to 90 frames. We literally gain 40 frames. That's a lot. That's almost doubling your frame rate. Except the weird graph is reading weird, but it's, I mean, it's saying 0. It's saying that it's 0. Now, what's weird is when I look at the character on the screen, you guys aren't going to be able to see it because you guys are seeing a 60 frames per second video on YouTube. But to me, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. For me, it feels like it's smooth, like the response of the character moving feels smooth, but the image doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like 90 frames. It looks like it's something in between. It's hard to say. It's hard to describe it, actually, to be honest. What's really weird, though, is do you guys notice? Okay, look, 75. It just dipped to 75. That's where you hit, like, one of those dips. That's one. These are one of those dips. Oh, I guess. Okay, I guess on the ground it averages around 75. You need VSync for correct frame timing. Maximum frame rate 240 VSync off. So hold on. Do I need to do VSync on and then set this to the like 120 or something? No, it still does. You know what's interesting? Look, when I go in the menu, when I go in the settings menu, it turns off the frame generation. This game turns off frame generation when you bring up the menu. See that? See how the frame graph goes back to normal when we drop down to our 45 FPS? If I go back out, it turns back on the frame generation. So it shoots back up to like 80 plus. So in this game, the 240 VSync option. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right, Shadow. I saw that. I saw that in the release, in the patch notes for Forespoken. I remember reading that this morning. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So yeah, you don't want it to be on 240. So you want it to be on 120. Is there anything else? I guess, okay, the only options are 120 or 240. So I guess you go to 120 and you turn VSync on. Okay, so we're gonna run it like this. I mean, yeah, okay. You know what? This feels smoother. This is how I kind of thought it was supposed to feel. Yeah. Okay, you guys can't really tell the difference, but I can tell the difference. This is what 80 FPS feels like. This is at 80 FPS. That weird feeling, it's hard to explain. Let me turn it back on just to okay, if I go to 240, it's almost like there's too much interpolation. You guys can't see it on screen, or maybe you can, but when I'm moving around, if I look at those purple flowers and I start moving my character, I can feel almost like a weird, almost like a micro, it's not stuttering. It's like infinitesimally small, like frame judder. That's the best way I can describe it. When it's set to 240, I can feel that, or I can see that frame judder. So even though it doesn't show up on the screen there, when we turn this to 120, it goes away and it is silky smooth. This is how it's supposed to be. So yeah, it's a bug with the game when you set it to 240. Yeah, this is what it's supposed to be like. Now, the screen, everything, just feels like it's above 60 FPS. It's a known issue. It's hard to read the generator frames. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess Afterburner is just gonna be, like, the graph in Afterburner is just gonna look like that. But look at the response, though. 0.3 milliseconds. This is silky smooth. this is exactly how it's supposed to be. Like, in terms of how the game feels right now, in terms of the responsiveness, there's like no input lag. It's crazy responsive. This is a game changer, this sort of technology, because and props to Nvidia for getting this out the door with DLSS 3, because they did it first, so they are the forerunner here. So props to them, where credit is due, because I did test this on the 4090 a few weeks ago. In fact, it was Forespoken, and I tested Hogwarts Legacy and a few other games. And yeah, this is exactly like how the DLSS 3 implementation was in games that featured frame generation. So yeah. So that's good to know, because that means that the AMD implementation, which I might add, does work on older hardware. Now, your mileage may vary, but this... Oh yeah, you're right. It wasn't this game, it was Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy was a game where I tested the frame gen. Actually, no, I think... Was frame gen in this game? I thought I tested frame generation. Oh yeah, you're right. No, it was Hogwarts Legacy. It was Hogwarts Legacy, and there was another game. Maybe it was Star Wars Jedi Survivor or something. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't this game. I tested DLSS 2 in this game on the 4090, and it was able to do like about... It was like 70 something, I remember, and it was like, oh, it's above 60 in a game that's really hard to run. But the thing about this is the implications, or I guess the ability to do frame generation really helps with CPU bottlenecks more than anybody would even like care to know, because a CPU bottleneck can do... Like a CPU bottleneck, I'm just thinking of MMOs, like Korean MMOs, Final Fantasy, those type of games. Those games can be very CPU bound when you go into like a city with a bunch of player characters everywhere. Your FPS tanks below 60 commonly in MMOs. So frame generation in those type of games could be very beneficial, because it would eliminate a lot of that like sub 60 experience that you get when you run into those cities. How does it look? Oh wait, what about image quality? I mean, we're watching a streaming, you're watching the screen. I mean, it looks fine. Like, to me, like, the thing about Forespoken though, Forespoken, like I said earlier, it literally looks kind of the same. It looks good. I mean, it looks like Forespoken. Like Forespoken always has that look. You know what I'm saying? Like we were saying earlier, how you turn RT on, no difference. You turn RT off, it looks the same. You turn on Fidelity FX, it still looks the same. So very minimal changes in terms of the actual image on screen. I mean, we have RT running right now. Like, everything's running. See, like, let me go back to graphics. So everything's on. Everything's maxed out. RT shadows, RT-AO, Fidelity FXAO, shadows are all maxed out. Everything's maxed. Everything maxed, 4K, because remember guys, this is 4K. This is 4K with the FSR3 and frame generation turned on. And this is how the game runs, at 4K. And that's pretty good. 84 FPS in a game that was constantly below 60 FPS. We were averaging about 50, anywhere from 47 to 50 frames per second with frame gen turned off at 4K native. So, that's good. That means that I gotta remember, what did the 4090 do in this game? Because the 4090 can't run 60 FPS either when you turn RT on in this game at 4K native. I tested it a few weeks ago. So I guess that means that currently the XTX is the best GPU for Forespoken because of frame gen. Well, actually, no, I take that back, because can't you turn FSR3 on for the 4090 as well? See, this is the reason why, man, AMD needs to make their stuff, like, they need to make their stuff exclusive. They need something that's exclusive. Like, I mean, it's nice that the GTX 1080 Ti can turn frame generation on via FSR3, but I don't know if that's going to make anyone who has a 1080 Ti consider upgrading to AMD. See, I feel like they need to make something exclusive. Now, I know next year, with FSR being turned on in the driver, that toggle, that is Radeon exclusive, because that's going to be controlled by the Radeon driver. FSR3 is an SDK that's implemented by the game developer. So, yeah. Yeah. Now try FSR3 quality. You think you'd be surprised? Alright, let's go to quality. Okay, this means that the game will now render internally at 1440p. So this is going to be 1440p, upscaled to 4K with frame generation turned on. Okay, it's smoother. We're maxed at 120 because that's the maximum frame rate.
No.
The game, for the most part, still looks the same. But again, that's because it's Forespoken, and Forespoken always looks the same. Yeah, it still looks good. But I would say that the individual foliage, when I move around, like if I run across the grass like this, I can kind of see, like, blending of the grass. It's like, the grass is sort of, like, blurring, like, especially, like, on the horizon there. With FSR, with upscaling, I should say. With the FSR upscaling turned on from 1440 to 4K, I can see kind of a... It's not a shimmer. It's more like a fading in and out of the grass, the individual strands. It is noticeable if you're looking for it. But the reality is if you're not looking for it, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. It's worse with Fidelity FX off. That's why you're recommending it on. Okay, so if we go and turn this back to temporal... So if we set this to temporal, or, oh no, yeah, standard AO. I still think it looks kind of the same, regardless of the Fidelity FX AO. Like, to me, it still looks kind of the same. Like, I'm still noticing the grass doing its thing because of the upscale. Turn this on again. Now, I still notice it. I'm still noticing it. So now let me go and turn this. Let me set this back to native. So let's go in here, turn this back up to native. Okay, yeah, this, hold on, let's see. Yeah, this looks sharper, but man, it doesn't feel as smooth because I was so used to that 120 FPS just now. But yeah, this looks better. This looks better than FS, like the upscale. Like, this is the pure 4K. This is pure 4K. Like, look at all the grass. Look at all the grass at 4K. Now, obviously, you guys are seeing a compressed, downscaled image of 1440. It's funny, because it's like, I turn on FSR, and I upscale 1440 to 4K, but then YouTube takes 4K and downscales to 1440. So it's like, it's like the resolution goes up, then it goes back down. It's noticeable in heavier foliage. Well, this is kind of heavy foliage, though. See, this is native. And to me, the grass, see how there's like the yellow tall grass and then there's that short green grass to her right? See how that looks? Like if I pan the camera around, it looks really sharp. Like it looks crispy. It looks crispy. Look at those leaves, like to the right of the character, but on the horizon of the hill there. Like, see how they all kind of blend? See how they all kind of stand out, though? It's not like they're getting blurred together. Alright, let me go back to FSR upscale. So quality. See, okay, this doesn't look that bad. But in areas where there's a lot of grass, like this patch right here with all this tall yellow grass, I can see, it's almost like there's some slight dithering. Where grass is kind of overlaid on top of other grass, where there's grass behind grass. And as you move through it, there's like a little bit of dithering happening, especially on the thinner strands of grass. The thicker plants don't show it that much. It's kind of hard to explain it. You guys probably can't really see it that well on a compressed video on YouTube. But I'm seeing it. Yeah, what I like, though, is the smoothness. This is definitely the 120 FPS. The 120 FPS, because we're upscaling from 1440 to 4K, is definitely something that you're going to get used... Like, I would get used to playing the game like this, and then I wouldn't want to go back to native 4K. Just because the frame rate is so smooth. Right now, the game, like, feels so smooth. And so responsive. It's kind of, like, alarming how responsive this feels. Because this is just a single-player game that was and still is mostly an unoptimized mess. But the frame generation, like, masks so many of those shortcomings. Yeah, I really like the quality. Yeah, quality's good. Let's go down to balance and see what happens. Now, we can't go beyond 120. But now, yeah, I'm starting to notice. See, already it doesn't look as sharp. Things, especially when you're moving around. I can see the dithering effect. And I can see, like, the grass that's overlaid. And the grass that's in front of other grass. It just kind of blurs together. Yeah, it just doesn't look as good. So definitely, native AA looks the best. Quality is probably the best way to play the game with the frame generation turned on. Unless you really like no dithering and like a very crispy, sharp image, then native AA. Native AA looks the best, but the frame rate's not the best. But it's still a lot better than without frame generation. That's for sure. It still feels more responsive. Because the way, like, think about the way this game played before today. You turn this off. This is how the game ran, like, all year, pretty much. If you wanted to run the game, like, at max settings, without FSR3, or without XESS, or DLSS. What's really weird is this... I guess because I'm not using Intel, I can't use XESS in this game, which is strange because I could have sworn you could turn XESS on in this game if you weren't using an Intel graphics card. But I was almost wondering if I could like combine the two. I guess that's not how it works because you're trying to run like two different SDKs. So yeah, that wouldn't work. But still, that's kind of interesting. So the driver based FG is available via preview driver. Oh man, I need to get into that program. I really need to get into that program so I can test that. Considering how many AMD GPUs I have in my collection, I really want to test that preview driver because this makes me want to go back and test frame gen on a bunch of older graphics cards. Like, I'm so tempted to bust out the ancient Vega 64 to test this feature. Vega 64 or Radeon 7. Basically GCN. Like, I want to test GCN. Although, didn't they say that officially this only works with RDNA 1 and up? I remember reading something. It was wherever I read about the 240 FPS issue. I might leave this on quality. I actually kind of like the way this runs on quality. Yeah, I think Shadow's right. I think I could get really used to playing the game like this. Wait, why is it 60? What happened? Oh, I turned off frame gen. Yeah, I could get used to playing the game like this. They weren't kidding when they said you basically... Frank Azer was like, you literally double your frame rate. Yeah, you pretty much went from 60 to 120. Yeah, I need to test that. Because I want to test a bunch of older GPUs. I also want to test this with NVIDIA GPUs too, just to see like how well the implementation actually applies to the older GeForce. How's FSR3? Well, take a look. This is how the game runs with FSR3. 120 FPS and 0 milliseconds. The game runs really good. I mean, if the game ran like this at launch, I think this game probably would have done like a whole point and a half better. Yeah, this is 4K. Well, this is FSR quality. So here, I'll show you 4K native. So this is native 4K with frame gen. Alright, check it out. This is native 4K, everything maxed out, including ray tracing. This is everything turned up all the way, including ray traced shadows and ray traced ambient occlusion. And we're now able to do around 80 frames per second at 4K native resolution. So that's pretty good. Met tested it at 1440 with the 6900 and it worked fine. Yeah, see, I don't doubt that it'll work fine with the RDNA GPUs. I want to see how it works on the old AMD GPUs. Like Radeon 7 and all the really old stuff, like Vega. I wouldn't test the ones that are no longer officially supported. Like, I'm not going to test the Fury, or, I mean, I could test the RX 480, but I probably won't test that one. I'll probably go back as far as Vega 64. That's as far back as I'll go. Because anything older than that, anything older than Polaris is not officially supported anymore by AMD. It's all end of support. So even though I have like an ancient HD 7970 Asus Matrix Platinum, I'm not going to go and pull that out. Wonder why they didn't give it to reviewers early. Wait. Which one? Hold on. Are we talking about two different things? It's the preview driver is public? I thought it was you had to be in that program to get access to that because it's a preview driver. Is the preview driver available now with the FSR driver toggle? I mean, I want to test that. Look at how the cat behaves. Why does the cat... Look at how the cat jumps when I jump. What? What is this? Uh-oh, there's an enemy. No, there isn't an enemy. Man, I wish this was in so many more games. It's so funny though, like, this makes me think that people who are not upgrading and they're just sitting around with their 4-year-old GPU, like, there's a bunch of people out there that are still on 5700 XT and RTX 2080s and stuff like that, and 2070s. All those people are just kind of sitting around and they're like, oh, AMD added frame gen. Now, all the more reason not to upgrade. You know what I'm saying? Like, now we don't have to upgrade. Because that's why I want to test this on a Radeon 7. Because a Radeon 7 is basically a 1080 Ti. The Radeon 7 is the closest thing I have to a 1080 Ti in terms of the performance. So, and the power consumption and everything. So, if I can get a Radeon 7 to play this game at 1440p with quality preset, with frame generation turned on, and it's able to do like similar frames, maybe like, you know, 65 to 70 or something, whatever. If it can do that, that means a 1080 Ti can do that. And that basically means that anybody on a 1080 Ti, they just got another boost in extending the lifespan of that card with this feature. Now, granted, it's only going to be in a handful of games, and the Radeon, the driver level toggle, isn't going to apply to GeForce GTX, but it's still a nice thing to have available. So it's like you don't actually have to upgrade your GPU now. Can you join the Discord VC after the end of the stream? Maybe. It depends. I don't think I'm going to stream that long, so yeah, I guess so. Do you see any difference between FSR2 and FSR3 upscaling? I mean, without frame generation? Was the image quality improved? The thing, we were saying this earlier, that Forespoken is one of those games that doesn't actually look that different with FSR. Now, unless you go down to performance and ultra performance and that kind of thing, then the upper level, the upper tiers, or the upper presets do look better. But in general, native and quality don't look that different. Like, you won't really notice a difference unless you literally know what to look for. And in my case, I do know what to look for, and what I can tell you is with quality, I do see a little bit of dithering between the individual grass strands that I don't see when I'm turning it on native. So see, like right now we're on native, and this is how it looks. Like, see how all the grass is just really sharp? We turn on FSR, or we turn on the upscale quality, and it's very slight, but there is a difference. If you look for it, you can see it. But if you don't know what to look for, I'm not going to tell you what to look for, because that's the whole point. Like, the whole point is to try to approximate as close as possible to the native, to the point where it doesn't really impact the visual quality. So this is it. This is how it looks at 1440p upscaled to 4K. Man, I wish this was in, like, Lies of P. Although Lies of P already runs really good. It would just make it more smooth. It feels kind of weird. At first, it's like, at first you realize, oh, this is amazing, because I'm able to do 120 frames per second now in this game, which I could never do before. But at the same time, it's almost like, I feel like I turn on a cheat code. It's like I input a cheat code, and now I've got, like, way better frames. You know what surprises me? That the frame generation technology, it took this long to come out with frame generation technology. Like, why was upscaling developed before frame generation? It's almost like you would have thought that they would have thought of doing frame generation before upscaling. Because I kind of feel, I almost feel like frame generation, once frame generation matures, upscaling is going to be kind of pointless. I mean, it's still useful if the game is, like, really hard to run. Like, obviously here, you know, like, with upscaling, we're doing 120 frames per second. We're literally capping the game. In fact, if we go, I know there's a bug, but let's turn on 240 mode. Okay, look at that. Wait a minute. It feels smooth right now. What? Oh, because VSync is on. Okay, turn VSync off. Huh?
Frey, stay with me.
Oh, I see. Well, you know what? With VSync off? Oh, never mind. Never mind. I'm noticing it again. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. There's a bug in the game. You can't do 240 max because it has some kind of weird input issue. So you gotta keep it at 120 with VSync on. This is actually the, yeah, this is the smoothest way to play this game. Interesting. It's almost like I turned on a cheat code though, and it's like download more RAM. I just downloaded more memory. It's like I literally just downloaded more FPS. So question based on the expectation. What are your thoughts? Did AMD do well with this, or is this? I think they did well. It basically did exactly what they said it would do. Like Frank Azer said that you could literally double your frame rate with this. And yeah, we literally doubled our frame rate. Like we went from, well, hold on, what do I do here? Okay. Here, native, or no, not native, quality off. So check this out. 60, I'm at 60 frames per second. I'm at around 60 frames. Why is it holding 60? Why is it always 60? Wait a minute, what? Oh, what? Okay, 120. Alright, look, see? The point is, see how it goes down to 60? We're at 60, see? We're going from 60, we go and we turn on frame generation. Magic. We're up, we just doubled our frame rate, just like that. So this is not a gimmick, this is actually for real. And the game actually is really smooth playing it this way too. This is the stream you've been waiting for. What's your take on FSR3? It's good. It's good. At least in the game that it's supposed to run in, like officially, it runs really well. This implementation is a good implementation of FSR3. Like this is a good example. The game is buttery smooth. It never played like this at launch. That's for sure. I mean, it still plays the same, but boy is it smooth. It is smooth. Like, wow. Wait till you try... what is AFMF? I don't even know what that is. What is that? Advanced Frame Multi... What is that? Is it some game? You love a good Van Gogh painting? What's the Van Gogh painting?
Open your eyes.
Oh, AMD Fluid Motion Frames, the driver. Oh, that's what they're calling it? Aren't they just gonna call it Radeon? Like, you know how they did FSR and then they did RSR? Isn't it just gonna be called like Radeon something? Like Radeon frame rendering or something? RFR or something like that? I don't know. No, it's AFMF. Okay. Okay. How do I go inside this again? Where's the door?
What are we in the mood for today?
Do I have any of these? Oh, I don't have any more. Which games have FSR3? Forespoken and Immortals of Avium have it as of today. And more are gonna gain it like in the next several weeks. And then I think sometime next year, man, I really want to get that preview driver. I really need that preview driver. Because I want to test this in like a ton of games at the driver level. Yes, it supports it on... Okay, right now, it supports it on RDNA 1, RDNA 2, and here, let me find the Forespoken update. Square Enix Games. Let's look at the official word. Okay, here it is. Here it is on Square Enix website today. Like, they literally have the update right here. Forespoken update 1.22 for Steam, Microsoft Store, and Epic Games Store. This update does not apply to the PlayStation 5 version. The Microsoft Store version will get it once it's approved. The updated version name, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here we go. Updated the game to support AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3. Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3 combines temporal upscaling and frame generation to deliver significantly higher performance. So you can see, they literally say it right there. Frame generation is enabled separately from upscaling. Separately from upscaling. That means if you don't want upscaling, you can just turn on frame generation independently. I tested that earlier. I already showed what that looks like. It's actually really good. And is available when using AMD. Here we go. RX 5000 series, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 20 series, and Intel Arc 7 series, or newer GPUs. That means if your GPU is newer than any of these, it has the feature already available. Upscaling is still available on GPUs older. They just kind of say that out loud. That's why I want to test this on a Radeon 7 and a GTX 1080. Added a new, and maybe a Vega 64. Added a new, although I don't really need to test both AMD cards. Added a new native AA quality mode option. So this is the thing. That if you just want frame generation and you don't want upscaling, you set it to native AA mode. So, native AA mode. So for those that are curious, what does native AA mode look like? We go here, native AA. That means that I'm going to run the game at 4K native resolution. Notice that dynamic resolution is off. Everything maxed out. Frame gen is on. Everything is maxed out, including ray traced ambient occlusion and ray trace shadows. So this is everything maxed out, 4K native. All I'm doing is turning on their Fidelity Super Resolution anti-aliasing and frame generation, and this is what the performance is like. So there you go. This is native 4K with frame gen. There's your frames. 190. It's like, it's still really high up there.
How
See?
are you holding up?
I've got some juice left.
So all the particle effects make it dip. But in general, you're always above 60 now, no matter what. Just by turning on frame gen. Does this game have DLSS 3? No. No, someone already answered that. Alright. Alright, just to give people an idea who may have tuned in earlier, we're going to turn off frame gen. So now you can see how the game runs at native 4K without frame generation. 43 FPS. There you go. This is pure native. No upscaling, no dynamic resolution. Ray tracing is turned on. Ray trace AO is on. Everything maxed out. 45. This is the performance of the game at 4K native on an XTX with no frame generation and no FSR. Like, this is straight up how the game runs. So you guys can see like how much of a game changer this is. I just turn this on and magically I've literally doubled my frame rate, essentially. You would like to see a side-by-side? Well, there is no DLSS in this game. I mean, there's DLSS 2, there's no DLSS 3. What other game? Oh, Immortals of Avium? I don't have Immortals of Avium. Man, I really want to test the preview driver though, so I can turn the toggle on and turn it on for a bunch of other games in the driver level. Because I want to test that fluid motion AMD. What is it? AMD fluid motion frames? Yeah, that thing. I want to test that. Because I've never really done anything with RSR. But I would totally test the AMD fluid motion frame. Whatever. Yeah, look. Oh, she almost fell off the mountain there. Only in a video game, the character's leg, one of the legs is literally just kind of floating. Magic. Okay. So that's it. I can actually finish the game now. The game is so much easier to run.
Damn.
Man, she takes no fall damage. That's interesting. She'll like fall from literally way up there and somehow not take. I guess she uses her magic shield. Her like magic shields protect her. Man, that's cool because the wizards in Harry Potter's game in Hogwarts Legacy, they don't have shields that protect them like that. She's got some like very overpowered magic shields. All right, what's over here? What is that? There's like a castle or something over there. Do you have the big fire spell? You can use that, but it drops below 60. Where's the... Okay, hold up. Let's go fight something. There was some enemy over here. Let's get into a battle and use the fire spell. What happens when you put FSR on? Hold on. Let's try to fight something.
Something's there. What should we do?
Alright, how do I play again?
Pretend we didn't notice.
Bam! 65! 64! I saw 65, 64 for a second.
Does that make things a little easier?
What is that?
More than a little.
Oh man, that thing hurt.
Yep. What? Still not enough?
How come I'm not able to spam my kneecap move? Yeah. Alright. Now, so far, it hasn't dropped below 60 ever since I turned FSR3 on. What is this? Oh, this is supposed to be where you get a cat? I think I may have already did this. I just don't even remember. Double, some almost 3 or 2x depending on the game. But see, I feel like this FSR3 is probably something that is more interest to most people compared to DLSS 3, because you can't use DLSS 3 unless you have a 40 series GPU. The thing about this FSR3 being added to games, you can be on an ancient 2070 and you can still use this. You can be on a 1080 Ti and you can still use this. See, so this is an enabler for those who were on a GPU, regardless of whether it's AMD or NVIDIA. Heck, even the new Intel GPUs can use this. So... Oh, I guess I should use her fire sword. How do I do her big move? There we go. There's the big fire spell. It still didn't drop. It still didn't go below 60. I haven't seen this go below 60 at all since turning on frame generation. But this is interesting. See, this is more of a game changer than DLSS 3. Yeah, DLSS 3 was the pioneering technology, but, you know, like, it's only available to people with 40 series GPUs, which is not a lot of people compared to the entire market as a whole. So just something to think about. One thing... What else can we do in here? I want to know, like, did they make the native AA thing available to other games? They just may not have the frame generation thing? Because that would be interesting to test, too. I guess a good reason not to release low-end cards next gen. Does it work on APUs? I don't see why it wouldn't work on APUs. Although it wasn't listed in Square Enix's list. Although they didn't really say that you couldn't use it on APUs. FSR3 will be available standalone without frame generation? Yeah. So I guess FSR3 by itself is what exactly? Like, is FSR3 supposed to be better looking than FSR2? I guess that's the question that I have. Because what I've noticed is ever since they rolled out this update, nowhere in here do I see anything mentioning FSR2. I can't turn FSR2 on anymore. Right? So I guess because look, even if I go to quality, it says FSR3 quality. So what exactly is the difference? Because yeah, FSR3 frame generation. But what? There's no FSR2 anymore in this game? Like, it's not a thing anymore? Hold on, why is the game goes up that high? I thought I capped this. Why did it jump up to 240 again? Yeah, this is the smoothest way to play the game. Cap it at 120. But the thing is, if they add this to the PlayStation 5, that means I can't even get it to do 60 frames per second. I just realized that. I gotta turn frame generation off to get it to go to 60 frames per second. So, is it even possible to do? Okay, so it is possible to do that. So if we cap it to 60, because see, frame generation can possibly, like, make a console that is not able to consistently hit 60 FPS be able to hit 60 FPS. Like, this could be how the game runs on a PlayStation 5 with the frame generation technology.
I sense a hostile presence. Be on your guard.
Yeah. Stay frosty. Got it.
Try Immortals? I don't have Immortals. I opted to get Lies of P instead. Last month. Or actually, no, that was this month. Was Immortals of Avium this month? Or was it last month? I can't remember. I think it was last month. Wasn't it? Immortals got skipped because there was just too many games. There was Baldur's Gate 3. There was Starfield. There was Lies of P. There was some other game that I can't remember that came out. Oh, Armored Core. What game is Immortals again? You know what game it is. You know the game. You know. The Magic. It's another Magic game. It's another Magic Combat. How do I change her? Okay, here, look. It's the pew 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 Magic shooter game. Remember? I like how the cat is just like spazzing out. Look at that. Look at the cat. What is that cat doing? What is this? Yeah, this Immortals was this game, you know. You know, you're the one who told me about the game in the first place. The finger magic, yeah, the finger magic game. Hence why I'm doing this. Yeah, that game. I don't even know what she did. She put rocks around her arm. Yeah, this type of game. Cat is dancing. This is the part that makes the cat dance, though. Like, the random, like, firing off rocks. Magic rocks. This game is actually not that bad. Like, this game got terrible reviews when it came out back in January. But at its core, it actually has a pretty solid game. Like, the combat system is actually pretty fun in this game. So if I turn this on, it automatically sets it to 120. That's interesting. Everyone got this cat, but looks like he's just cosmic. What? What type of cat is that? Okay. The cat got added into the game, though. Like, it's sometime between when the game launched and now, the cats were added. Like, the cats were in the game on day one, but they weren't able to follow you around like this. Yeah, this game is very good to test memory stability. And you guys can see, like, I'm using about 26 gigabytes of system RAM right now. And the game itself is using 12, almost 13 gigabytes of video memory for 4K. And this is the reason why, like, when I evaluate graphics cards, and if I label a graphics card as a 4K graphics card versus a 2K graphics card and a 1080p graphics card, one of the metrics to determine if a graphics card is actually a real 4K graphics card, or it's meant to be a 4K graphics card, is the amount of video memory. If the graphics card has 24 gigabytes of video memory, it's a 4K graphics card. It was designed from the engineering team to target gaming at 4K as an intended use case of the product. I mean, look at the game. Look at Forespoken. We're using almost 13 gigabytes of VRAM. We're using more VRAM than a 4070 Ti can provide. This is the reason why a 4070 Ti... This is why all the reviewers, like Hardware Unboxed, like, they rank the 4070 Ti as one of the worst value GPUs. Because who wants to spend $800 plus for an AIB, like a Zotac, 4070 Ti, for a measly 12 gigabytes of RAM? $850 for 12 gigs of RAM. You're not going to be gaming at 4K. Okay, and who wants to spend, and here's the other thing, who wants to spend more than $500 for a 1440p card? I mean, some people have to do that. If you want a 4070, you have to spend $600, around that number, for a 12 gigabyte graphics card, which is basically kneecapped and has to stay at 1440p for its entire lifespan. And then it may eventually have to dip down to 1080p. So that's not very good. Yeah, it's not a good look. This is the reason why frame generation DLSS 3 is such a good thing paired up with such mediocre options. No 120 FPS feels like 120 FPS. What? What are you talking about? Oh, Juan's asking, so 120 FPS feels like 60 FPS? Who said 120 FPS feels like 60? Do you know what you're talking about? Like, that is the weirdest question. Like, I don't even understand, like, what you're asking, dude. This feels like 120 This is 120 FPS, bro. Like, this doesn't feel like 60 FPS. I don't know where you got that idea. you're clearly not paying attention. That's all I can say. Anyway, you saw an open box 7900 XT Hellhound at Micro Center for $650. See, that's a pretty good deal. That's actually a really good deal because that graphics card has 20 gigabytes of video memory. Think about that. 20 gigabytes of video memory. So that card is the one that's always kind of a mixed bag to me, in my opinion. So like there's two cards that are really weird. They're like ambiguous enigmas. Those two cards are the 7900 XT and the RTX 4080. The 4080 is so expensive, coupled with 16 gigabytes of memory. So yeah, it's okay. You can do 4K on a 4080, and you don't have to worry for the most part. Today, like if I was running a 4080, look, we're using 12.6 gigs of VRAM right now. And so if we're on a 16 gig card, we have some headroom there. But how is that going to age, 3 years from now? Maybe that doesn't really matter because the typical 4080 buyer is probably going to upgrade after 3 years. So maybe it's not a problem. But it's just one of those things where I feel like it's riding that fine line of being relevant up until it's just straight up not relevant prematurely, if that makes sense. If you cap the FPS, the latency is good as native 120 if you want to try. Okay. That doesn't mean that it's going to look as smooth. So you're telling me to cap the frame rate. So to do that, the only way for me to do that is to literally turn off frame generation and then cap it to 60. Okay, we'll do that. Okay. And, okay, check it out. My response time is 16 milliseconds. 16 milliseconds. And before it was reading close to 0, so I don't know. I don't get it. It doesn't look as smooth, I can tell you that right now, just by me visually looking at the screen. Because I'm playing the game on a 144 Hz 4K 27-inch monitor. This is a Sony InZone M9 with HDR. And this doesn't look as smooth as what 120 looked like. So, not exactly sure what you're talking about. I'm reading 16 milliseconds at 60 frames per second. So if we go and we set this back to frame gen, that forces it to be 120. So I can't go down to 60. And then now, my response time just went down to close to 0. And visually looking at the screen in front of me, the game definitely looks smoother. It definitely feels smoother. So, yeah, no, this is 120 FPS. We can go beyond that, but there's really no reason to. Because then it'll start tearing on my screen, because I have a 144 Hz monitor. So I don't want it to go to like 150 something, because then it'll start tearing. And that just looks bad, so... Because NVIDIA... What? What? I don't get... again, I mean, this is not... this is not DLSS 3. You're comparing apples and oranges here. It's not the same. I mean, it results in the same objective. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be implemented exactly the same. Alright, I've climbed this mountain now probably almost a dozen times. Oh, Jay had asked, how long does it take to find RAM instability using this game? HCI can fail even after 18 hours-ish. This game doesn't take that long. This game can literally tell you if your RAM is unstable within 10 minutes of playing the game. Like, what I like to do to test RAM is literally what I'm doing right now. The best thing to do to test RAM in this game is to run around in the world and go get into a random battle with enemies. And then after the battle, you get out. Like, that cycles the RAM a lot in this game. So that's what I would do. And I'll put it this way. I have tried to test. I've done like memtest 86 for like 15 hours plus on an Intel system, and it told me it was stable. I go and load up this game, and within 6 minutes it tells me that the game crashes, and it tells me that there's like a read or a write error. And that immediately told me, oh, it's RAM. Okay, so the RAM's not stable. See? So yeah, this game is so good at checking your RAM overclock. Like, it's scary good. Not only that, this game features direct storage. So I'm running the game off of a PCI Gen 5 SSD. I said this at the very beginning of the stream, I'll say it again. I'm currently using a Crucial T700. This is a 2 terabyte. This is the world's fastest SSD. So this is best case scenario for Forespoken, because Forespoken actually scales with the speed of your SSD. The faster your SSD, the faster the average frames, or I guess the minimum frames, and the 0.1% in this game, because this game is using direct storage constantly to decompress the textures via the CPU. So I just want to look at my Gen 5 drive here to see the temperatures on it, because I was curious, because I just installed it today. So my SSD that this game is running off of, the Crucial T700, is currently running at 51 degrees Celsius, running this game off of that drive. So it definitely is running a lot warmer than all of my other SSDs. My other SSDs are running at 44 Celsius, 38 Celsius, 34 Celsius. So, you know, the Gen 5 drive, even with the fat heatsink on there, it's still running hotter than the others. So that tells me that direct storage is doing work, and the SSD is actually performing as expected. So those are some really good temperatures. So that means that the Crucial T700, or no, not the Crucial, the Aorus Master from Gigabyte has a really good solution for cooling Gen 5 SSDs. It is adequately cooling the fastest SSD on the planet. So that is really good, because I did not want to buy the version of this SSD that had the included heatsink. Can GPU sag kill a GPU? Because my card is starting to sag really bad. It depends on how bad it's sagging and what GPU is it, because it also depends on if there's a memory chip that's close to the PCIe connector. So we would have to know what model of GPU, what AIB partner card is it using, and also if there's a RAM chip that's close to the actual PCIe connector, in order to answer that question. Alright, let's go head over here. Let's actually do something in this game. I might as well. What's this? What? Oh, there's a crocodiles. Oh, hold on, I need some fire magic.
Okay.
Wait, am I still doing the fire magic? Oh no, I'm not even on fire magic. Man, these things are tough.
Whoa.
There, I need him. I did the Captain Falcon forward ace knee smash from Smash Bros. She's got that move. Oh, I like the wild jumping sword move. This move's like her best move though. Her knee smash. There, burn him down. An RX 6800 fighter, so that's a power color. We have to look. You're probably gonna be okay, but it kind of depends on how bad that angle is. Has it been in there for more than 2 years? Let me see. Let's take a look at this. He said power color fighter 79 or no 6800. This one? Okay, so it's this one. Alright. Oh, they don't have a picture of it. They don't have a picture of the PCB, so it's hard to say. But this could be... No, this is not the reference card. So just by looking at it right here, at this angle, I don't think it will be a problem. I mean, it's gonna look kind of... It's not gonna look great with that sag, but it's, I don't think it's gonna damage anything. It's probably gonna be fine. Like, I don't see anything... I don't see a memory chip that's too close to this right here. Because sometimes there's a memory chip that ends up being kind of isolated. Like, if we go back to the reference card, assuming they have pictures of this. See, like, right here? See, sometimes the RAM, the VRAM right here on the bottom of the board is closer to the PCIe. And if it doesn't have that epoxy glue, it looks like glue, that is kind of on the sides of it. Because the reason why they put that glue in there is to help support the VRAM from things like bending and pressure applied to the PCB. Why would that card have any significance? AG, it's not that heavy. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's okay. I had a Sapphire card that developed sag after lots of years of not using a... Here, I'll show you the one. Is it this one? Yeah, this one. Hold on, I guess I have to go to the limited to see the actual teardown. No, it doesn't have teardown. Anyway, I had one of these. Well, I still have it. But this one developed sag. This is a very big, you can see it's a large and long card like this. And the thing is, it's kind of my fault because this card included a anti-sag bar to install along the case where you screw it into the side. And I never installed it because I didn't like how it took away from my ability to install a network card underneath it, because I needed access to that PCIe slot. So I never installed the sag bracket, and lo and behold, after like 2.5 years, it started sagging. But it never failed. It still worked fine, like after like two to 3 years. I never had a problem with it, so... I mean, your mileage may vary. I mean, the thing with this card is this card used HBM2, so it never had VRAM around the chip to begin with. So that's why, you know, not really a great example because it's not a similar example, but it did sag and it was okay for like 3 years. And that's my fault because it did include an actual anti-sag bracket. I just never installed it. The PCIe... No, see, the thing is... The problem is... This area here... Over a long period of time, because of gravity... It starts to... Just this front part of the PCIe... Starts to bend downward. Because the card's so heavy... This front end of the card... has nothing supporting it, so it just starts bending downward, and it starts pulling the card down with it, so you get that sag look. It's just something that happens due to gravity. Now, you'll never see this in pre-builds. You know why? Because pre-builds... I guess I can't show it with this. Hold on. Man, why is it so hard to find a picture of the front of one of these GPUs? Why is it so hard to find this? all these features? No, I just want to see the front of the card. Come on, Tech Power Up. You never let me down before. Now he just straight up failed me. How do you not take a... Okay, he barely managed to succeed here. Look. This hole on the front of the GPU is it's a screw hole. And if you were to buy a pre-built computer, the pre-built case includes support... Like, it's got screw holes to attach the GPU at the front end to a mounting post. And the whole idea behind that is to prevent sag. It's literally, well, it's also because if you're gonna ship a desktop, a pre-built desktop, you're gonna ship that thing via UPS or FedEx. That thing's gonna be banging around, like rattling, all that vibration, the back of that delivery truck, and the actual semi 18-wheeler that's gonna, you know, deliver it from one warehouse to another. So think about that. That's the reason why all the reference cards include these screw holes here to mount a rail post at the front of the case to the front of the GPU so that it will never sag. This is the permanent solution for preventing a sagging GPU. However, you can always buy those that have the little sag braces. Like, I currently have 3 different anti-sag brackets, and I'm using all 3 of them. So the man, now I gotta go back. Did they ever review this thing? Power Color Red Devil Limited Edition. Did they ever do this? No. Well, anyway, I've got one from my Red Devil. I have another from the Fractal Torrent. The full one. This one? Yes, this one. This is the case that I'm using right now. Like, actually, the computer that I'm streaming from right now is literally sitting inside a Fractal Torrent. I'm not talking about the compact. I'm talking about the big, full Fractal Torrent with the RGB fans. So this thing includes, right here, this has one of the best anti-sag bracket implementations that I have ever seen built into the actual case. Like, and I'm using it right now for the Sapphire Nitro XTX. So this is what I use to prevent sag on the XTX. The Power Color Limited Edition XTX that I have, that is using its actual limited edition stand that it came with. And then the third one, the third anti-sag bracket that I'm using is a, what is this? Sampler feedback? What is that? Anyway, Forespoken. Do we need this anymore? I don't know. I don't think well, whatever. X670E Steel Legend. This one. The third bracket that I have that's for anti-sag that I'm using is the one featured with the X670E Steel Legend. So I'm using basically all of the anti-sag brackets because I have like very heavy GPUs. Do you think Micro Center will honor 2-year replacement plan if I take it back because I'm worried GPU sag? It's not going to kill your GPU. Like, it's not going to kill your GPU. The PCIe slot isn't reinforced? No, I mean, that has nothing to do with it. Like, but the point is, it's not going to kill your GPU. Because they only use, what is this? 30, what? What's the, what? I feel like the B650 Aorus Elite PCIe slot, it has nothing to do with the PCIe slot. No. The PCIe slot doesn't help with sag. No. Sag happens because the front part of the GPU is not being held up in any way. And so it's basically pulling it down. It's not going to die, though. Like, the thing is, people underestimate how strong printed circuit boards actually are. Like, you're not going to break your printed circuit board. Well, I mean, it's not going to sag to the point where the GPU just doesn't work. So I wouldn't worry about it. The reason why I use an anti-sag, the reason why anti-sag is a thing is because of, one, aesthetics, because the sagging GPU doesn't look good. And two, if you're going to ship a pre-built computer to an end customer, you don't know how FedEx or UPS is going to abuse that thing in the transit. So you want to secure the GPU. You don't want that GPU to like pop out of the socket or, you know, get jumbled around. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's why you want to secure it on the back end with the screws at the back of the case and at the front end with a mounting rail. You're just worried because people were complaining about Gigabyte GPU PCBs cracking? Okay, you don't have a Gigabyte GPU, so what does that have to do with any of this? Like, I fail to see the reason for worrying. Like, it's trust me, I had a sagging Vega 64 for about 3 years. Was it 3? Yeah, about 3 years. And I didn't do anything about it. The GPU still works. I mean, I retired it, but it still works. I'm thinking of testing it with FSR3 as one of the GPUs. So I wouldn't worry about it, man. You're worrying about too much. Like, trust me, you're more likely to have a fan on the GPU go bad before the sag becomes a problem, if it would ever even become a problem. It's more of an aesthetics thing, more than anything else. So, but yeah, this Steel Legend is nice, except the fact that the Gen 5 cooling is not good enough for a Gen 5 SSD. Because the underside of this heatsink, the side that faces to the motherboard itself, doesn't actually have an underside heatsink. It only has, where it says blazing M.2, this thing only cools the top side of the SSD. The bottom side of the SSD is not cooled at all. So when I realized that, I was like, oh, I can't use a Gen 5 drive with this motherboard, because this motherboard has an inadequate cooling solution. Like, it would work for a Gen 4, but it's not going to work for a Gen 5. You have to cool both sides. It just generates way too much heat. So this thing's totally inadequate for cooling Gen 5 drives. So if you're gonna, so what I'm saying is, if you want to run a Gen 5 SSD with an ASRock Steel Legend or a $300-ish motherboard, you're gonna need to buy an SSD that has its own heatsink. I wouldn't trust the included heatsink that the motherboard comes with, unless it has cooling on the bottom side. So there'll be a video on the channel that will come out sometime next week showing the, the fastest SSD, and basically like the scenario where you would purchase one that doesn't have the heatsink versus purchasing one that does have the heatsink. So I'll cover that in a future video. I just wanted to throw that out there because people are probably like, well, how come your load times are so fast? And how come the FPS is like constantly, like there's no minimum, right? Like the minimum is basically so high that you don't even notice it. One back to the game. So because of that, there's nothing really to do. Like if I go to, like if I forgot how to teleport in this game. I forgot even how to bring up the map. Oh, right here. Like, where am I? I'm like way over here. So if you fast travel, see how fast that is? Look, check this out. Let's check this out again. So we're gonna keep this on. Where is this? I gotta remember this. This is Water Garden Southern Refuge. Let's fast travel to some place that's far away. I can't fast travel there? Can I fast travel here? I can't fast travel here either. Okay. Let's fast travel here. Watch how fast it loads. Like that's how fast the game loads. Like, do you see that? The game loaded so fast. The map change was so fast. That reminded me of Demon Souls on PlayStation 5. In terms of how fast that was. That was such a fast load. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try going to somewhere that's really far away. Western Refuge. See that? It's like, boop. Now loading. Okay, done. Well, this place is weird. Oh yeah, you know what? The fans? The fans, you're like the fans are screwing. Yeah, that's because I raised the fan curve on purpose recently. That's because I was messing with overclocking. By default, it wouldn't be that loud. That's why the temperature is so low. 56 Celsius. It's 56 Celsius on the GPU because the fans are spinning so fast. But yeah, those are audible. That's definitely an audible volume level in terms of how fast those fans are spinning. I want to go back to where I was. It was way over here. Was it here? No. Here? Yeah. Alright. Dude, that's like 1 second. The load times are like literally 1 second in this game. With the Gen 5 SSD. Hold up. Wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah, whatever. I didn't really accomplish anything, so let's exit out. I probably should have saved because I did loot some rare materials. Whatever. This is the Nitro. Yeah, so the Nitro is running with a custom fan curve, and that's the reason why it's running at 2400. But that's why it's only 56 Celsius. Just to keep that in mind. All right, I want to see something. I want to run the benchmark real quick. I want to see how this loads. Dude, what is this? The frame generation is that high? The frame generation is 150 something FPS. To put things into perspective, we're running the game with the ray tracing. Everything's maxed out. We turned on frame gen, and this is what the results are. How long does it take on Gen 4? I have to go back and look at my video from earlier this year. I already did all these tests with Gen... Well, okay, no. I have no idea because I don't have a Gen 4 SSD. Remember? I literally don't have any Gen 4 SSD on PC. I have every other SSD that I have is either a SATA SSD or a PCI Gen 3 SSD. I have so many Gen 3 SSDs, it isn't even funny. Like, I literally have a collection of Gen 3 M.2 drives. I've got Inland, I've got Samsung, I've got Crucial, I think I might even have a PNY SSD or something. Maybe Western Digital. I've got so many, but they're all Gen 3. And my only Gen 4 SSD, I do have a Gen 4 SSD, but guess what? It's in the PlayStation 5, because the PlayStation 5 requires a Gen 4 SSD. I've got an Inland Performance Premium or something. It's a Gen 4 that does 7,000. It's basically a maxed out Gen 4. Okay, this scene is the hardest scene to render in the game. It did 106 with frame gen. But the load time was insane. It was so short because my Gen 3 typically takes like 3.5 to 4 seconds to load that scene. And an SSD, SATA SSD, is like 7 to 8 seconds. Or 6.5 to 8 seconds, somewhere in there. And a hard drive is like 12, 15 seconds plus. So, just to give you guys an idea. Now, I don't know about Gen 4 load times. That one was almost 2 seconds. So, and keep in mind that my computer is doing a whole bunch of other things. I have the stream going. I'm pushing a lot of bandwidth to the internet right now. I've got the Discord, I've got Afterburn, I've got all this stuff running. I've got overlays, browsers open. OBS is running, hardware monitor, hardware info 64 is running, all this stuff's running. So I can only imagine if I was doing like an actual record for benchmarking for like a video, I would not have this be the environment to actually run the benchmark. I would run the benchmark without any of this other garbage turned on the computer while doing it. So this is kind of worst case scenario. But I would assume, Psycho, I would say you're probably right. There's probably not going to be much of a difference between Gen 4 and Gen 5 in this game. I can't imagine it being significantly better on Gen 5. But it is better. Like, somebody tested Gen 3 and Gen 4 and a hard drive earlier this year, and they found Gen 4 did yield the best results. So, alright, so the average with frame gen was 145 with ray tracing and everything enabled. So 145. Let's do what do I want to do here? Oh, that was quality. Okay, let's do native. Okay, native FSR3. So this is gonna be 4K FSR3, no upscaling, with frame gen. So now we're gonna test and see what score we get. So remember, the score that we got with quality FSR3 with frame gen was 145. So I expect the score to be a lot lower this time around. .4K RAM didn't change much from Gen 4 to Gen 5. My Gen 3 is faster than your Gen 4 at 4K random. Jay, what motherboard do you use? Yeah, I'm curious to know what... Yeah, motherboard and slots. My thoughts exactly. Like, if there's no way a Gen 4 is slower than a Gen 3. Well, there are reasons why it could be. And I can give you those reasons, but I want to know what you're actually running it on. Oh, what's Z440? What's a Z440? What's a Z440? Oh, the hard, or the drive. Z440? I don't know what that is. Team Cardea? Silicon Power S55, Gen 3, both DRAM cached. I don't know what those are. Is the controller on that second one a Silicon Motion controller? I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that drive is. I've never heard of it before. Neither one of them. Team Cardea is a Gen 4 and the other one's a Gen 3. Yeah, but what motherboard are you using and what are the slots that they're installed in? Doesn't really matter which drives they are, but I mean it does kind of matter, but not as much as what you're actually running them on. Whoa, man, this one dipped all the way down. Look at that, 65. Totally, that was the hardest scene to render in the entire game, or the entire benchmark. Be interesting on the Matrix demo, see how the XTX rub native versus frame gen. Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I might want to test that too. Asus X570. Okay, so you got 2 drive slots. They both support Gen 4. Asus Tough. Not Tux, it's Asus Tough. But anyway, does the Gen 4 drive have a heatsink? It should have a heatsink. If the Gen 4 drive doesn't have a heatsink, that's going to be slower than Gen 3. Because you know why? Because if it doesn't have a heatsink, it's going to be thermal throttling. Oh, wait, it does? Wait, typo? Yeah, no, that's fine. No, but the one that he has it installed in, though. Because I'd have to look at the picture of the Tough. I know that the Tough only has 2 drive slots, though. Or 2 M.2 slots. Alright, let me see something here. This is almost done. 90. Okay, 90 FPS. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not anywhere close to 145. But 90 FPS is still respectable frame rate. For just turning frame generation on. And leaving everything maxed out. 4K native. So that's pretty interesting. So, okay, so 90 frames per second average in this game. With native AA and frame gen. So now, let's do this. Let's turn off frame generation. Leave native, turn on. Everything else is going to be maxed out. So let's see what happens without the frame generation. And this will be the last test that I do for this game. And then we'll move on. So we're doing... Oh, look at that. It's already lower than 60. Well, anyway, while that's running, I guess we can check on your motherboard. X570 tough. Is it Gimme Plus? Okay. This. Is this your motherboard? Tough. Gaming. X570 Plus. It has a fan. It has a active cooling on the chipset. The Gen 4 one should be down here because that's where the heatsink is. The Gen 4 drive is in the primary slot, no heatsink. Well, that's a problem, dude. The drive doesn't exceed 60. No, that's still a problem. You have a fan pointed at? I don't know. You know why? I'll tell you why. Even though it's telling you that it's 60-ish, which is already too hot, in my opinion. You should be down to like 40-something. Because I'm telling you right now, like, I'll look at mine. So, okay, just to put things in perspective for you. My Gen 5, this thing can run really hot. Okay? This is a Gen 5. This is the world's fastest SSD. So let's go back to the benchmark so I can know when it's actually going to finish. Whoops. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, this thing's dipping all over the place. But anyway, this Gen 5 SSD is the fastest SSD in the world, at least right now, today. This thing, okay, if I do not put a heatsink on this SSD, this will go to 90 degrees Celsius. It'll easily go to 85°C without a heatsink. And that's just the Phison E26 controller. The NAND flash chips without a heatsink will go to 65 degrees. So think about that. 65 on the NAND flash, 85 to 90 on the controller. Do you see how that's a problem? So in your case, your Crystal Disk Mark, whatever, you're saying that it's 60-ish. So your NAND flash is probably at 60-ish, like I just said, 60-something degrees. I bet your controller is probably thermal throttling close to 90 degrees, just like I saw with this SSD. So no, you have to put a heatsink on a Gen 4 SSD. The Gen 4 SSDs are not supposed to run without a heatsink. So that's your reason why it's not performing as it's expected. In fact, you're actually going to kill it over time, or you're definitely going to degrade the lifespan of the NAND flash by running it without a heatsink. It's not designed to not have a heatsink. So basically, the bottom line is what you should do is simply exchange the position of those two. So we did 49. So we did 49 without frame gen, 90 with frame gen, and 145 with FSR quality preset with frame gen. So yeah, this game is a lot more playable than it was at release with this new update. You need a magnifying glass to see the RT differences in this game? Yeah. So let's just do one final load into the game to see how fast it loads into the game. So I'm going to click continue, and we're going to load in and see how fast... Well, actually, hold on. Before I do that, Let's turn back on the frame generation. And then we'll leave... Yeah, we'll just leave it at 4K native, I guess. Alright. Here we go. Time for the load times. Let's see how long it takes to load in. I never get tired of seeing that. You click continue and you're instantly in the game. Whoa, the crocodiles came back. They need to send these things back to Disney World. Man, this thing's got a lot of armor.
You're mine.
Oh, his underside's the weak spot, though. Wait, why is there... you know what? Okay, hold on. Let's try... He's running away from me. Let's try...
Yeah.
How do I fire this again? Oh, wait. I need to do... Yeah, this. Wait, she's got the shield up? Alright, never mind. Fire magic is so much better. Oh, I don't have that charge. I wonder. Hey, I've got a different cat. The cat's pink now. The cat was blue earlier. What happened? And it's missing part of its tail. Some of this cat's tail's cut off. Oh, I knew I should have saved. I had to re-loot the chest. That means I lost all the stuff that I looted earlier just collecting things on the way over there. Do I need to upgrade AMD driver to get this? No. No. You just have to update the game. It's a game level update, not a driver level update. It swapped genders. Yeah, I guess. It's missing part of its tail, though. See? It looks different. It's got butterfly, or it's got some kind of, like, I don't know, like butterfly wings or something? It has some weird wings. The other one had, like, vampire bat wings or something. This one's got, like, butterfly wings. Hold up. If I go back to my... Why is she doing... Why is she even doing that spell? I don't even want her to do that spell. Oh, there we go, there we go. I want to see what this cat does. The cat starts dancing when I start blasting the... I don't know how to control what it does, though. Like, why is she making that shield? I don't understand how the combat works in this game fully. But, anyway. So, anyway. Going back to Jay with the drive. No, you have to put a heatsink on that Gen 4 drive. It's not designed to run without a heatsink. Put it this way. I would never run this without a heatsink, nor would I run any Gen 4 drive without a heatsink. That's just asking for trouble long term. You're asking for a hardware failure or some kind of catastrophic problem in the future by doing that. So just what I would do is simply swap the position of the two drives. I would put the Gen 4 down there under that heatsink, and the Gen 3 goes up there next to the CPU. That's what I would do, like, instantly. So, hold on. The only thing is that... Otherwise, you're going to have to get a heatsink for that drive. But both of those slots should be Gen 4. Oh. Wait. Yeah, they're both Gen 4. They're both Gen 4. Just swap them. Who cares? Swap them. One of them goes to the CPU. The other one goes to the chipset. But it doesn't matter. They're both PCI Gen 4. The easiest thing to do, get that drive under that heatsink, and put that Gen 3 one without the heatsink and be done with it. That's the easiest thing to do. I mean, nah, you have to. You can't keep cooking your Gen 4 SSD like that. 60 Celsius. It's doing 60 Celsius on the NAND flash, which is already borderline too hot, and then your controller is probably running at like 85, 90C. So no, you can't leave it like that. Like, I'm looking at mine right now in Hardware Info 64. I've been running Forespoken now for over 2 hours. And keep in mind, Forespoken is a direct storage title, and it's using the SSD. Because it's installed on the Gen 5 SSD. And the hottest my SSD has gotten, with the heatsink, is 54 degrees Celsius. That's the maximum temperature that I'm seeing. The average is right now is like 52. It's currently 52 degrees. And the minimum is 44 degrees. So that's actually a lot better than the other Gen 5 drive that I have that is forced to use its included heatsink because the other motherboard that it's in does not actually have adequate cooling for Gen 5. So yeah, no, you're going to have to do the swap. It's not a big deal running it off of the chipset. It's still going to be Gen 4 capable. See, because it's right here. Storage. 1, M.2 with M key. Now the thing is, do we know if the bottom one is actually the better one? I would assume the bottom one is your primary, actually. Where's the actual manual? That's the BIOS manual. Oh, here's the French one? Okay. Let's find out where these are. Because I have a feeling the bottom one is actually the primary. Okay, no, it looks like I'm wrong. Yeah, so the primary one is the top one. That's kind of dumb. That they put the primary one is at the top and there's no heatsink on the board. That's kind of, yeah, that's just Asus being dumb. Because Asus does stupid things like that with their earlier boards. The way that they arrange things didn't make any sense. But yeah, anyway, that's just an Asus thing. That's just Asus being dumb. Because they go and they put the first SSD on the board, and then they have like no heatsink on there, yet the second one gets a heatsink. That's weird. Yeah, you're gonna have to swap them. That's kind of dumb. It's almost like they expect you to install an M.2 drive, a Gen 4 drive that actually comes with a heatsink. But yeah, no, you have to swap them. You can't keep cooking that drive. So I guess what you'll do, once you swap them, then when you do the test, you'll see that the Gen 4 then performs like it's supposed to. Because it's definitely thermal throttling. Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. Sabrin M.2. I mean, yeah, you could get a heatsink. That's the other option. But let's look at it this way. It's like, if you don't want to spend any money at all, just swap the drives. Just swap the drives. That's like the easiest thing to do. And just live with it. I mean, that's what I would do. Otherwise, you can do what RK is suggesting and get a heatsink enclosure to install on the drive. Then you don't have to swap them. But the problem with that is you have to spend money for that enclosure. And you still have to take it apart. So it's like, if you're going to have to take it apart anyway, if you don't want to spend any money, just swap the position of the drives. Now you guys know why I have no Gen 4 SSDs. Now you guys know the secret why all of my SSDs up until recently, up until this year, have all been Gen 3 SSDs. Because I didn't care to think where to install them on the motherboard. I didn't care to worry about cooling options for them. But now with Gen 5 and Gen 4, you have to take into account cooling and all these other things. Like, especially with Gen 5, because Gen 5 you have to have bottom side cooling. You can't just cool the top of the SSD, you have to cool the bottom of the SSD with Gen 5, and that's why I just mentioned earlier that some motherboards like this Steel Legend, even though it supports Gen 5, you can't use the heatsink that it comes with for Gen 5. You can use it for Gen 4, but not for Gen 5, even though it says Gen 5. But if you have a nice motherboard like the Aorus Master, you can, in fact, use the built-in heatsink to cool the Gen 5 SSD. Will the motherboard's heatsink fit it? Yeah. No, actually no. There's no screw holes. I don't think I saw anywhere to put it. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and save, I guess. I'm gonna save, and I'm gonna exit out of this game. Okay. Is there a gallery? Oh yeah, right here. So let's just zoom in, or actually, wait a minute. Yeah, you'd have to check. Maybe, you know what? Maybe you can fit. No, see, I don't see a place to put it. This screw hole right here is for the mounting the board to the actual chassis, the case, and this is for a 2210. So yeah, I don't think this heatsink will fit on there, because where are you gonna put the top screw? Yeah, that's just Asus being dumb. You're just gonna have to swap them. That's the easiest fix. It's annoying, but it's just one of those things. Because I'm running my older platform. See, I have a similar Asus board, actually. X570 Crosshair 8 Hero Wi-Fi. This one. Yeah, so this is my X570 motherboard that has the 5800X on it. And this one... See, this one has heat sinks on both. On the top one and the bottom one. So this one doesn't matter. But I guess this one... This is when motherboards started getting expensive. Was with AMD's Zen 2 launch is when motherboards started getting expensive. Because I remember when X570 launched... Gigabyte had a Aorus Extreme that was $700. And it was the only AM4 X570 board that did not have a fan. Because Gigabyte put so much metal on the chipset that they didn't need the fan. Everybody else had to run the fan. And the fan was never really a problem. Like, I never noticed it being loud or anything. So it was all kind of over sensationalized. It was actually not a problem at all to have a fan on the chipset. It was not loud. It didn't spin that fast. It didn't really generate too much heat, but it generated enough heat that you had to have a fan on there. But yeah, like I remember this motherboard was the first motherboard that I purchased that was really expensive for a consumer desktop platform. And when I say really expensive, this motherboard cost me $375, just to give people an idea. And back then, in 2019, $375 for a consumer mainstream desktop. So this is not Threadripper. This is not a Xeon Supermicro board or any of those kind of things. You know, it's just a regular consumer desktop motherboard. Back then, $375 was a lot of money for a motherboard. So, but, you know, Gigabyte was selling a $700 Aorus Extreme, and I think there was like a $500 Asus Extreme thing or whatever. There was a bunch of different ones. There was the ones with the water blocks built into the VRM heatsinks and that sort of thing. But yeah, like this raised the bar in terms of having to spend a lot of money on a motherboard. Because I thought to myself, you know, $375, that's really pushing it. But that was back when I was a staunch believer in Asus for like the be all end all. Like you gotta go Asus if you want to overclock. Back then, I was in that camp just because I was thinking like, oh, Asus is the one that has all the BIOS options. Well, it turns out they're actually not the one that has all the BIOS options. But they do have a good track record in terms of external B clock and those kind of things. They do tend to have a lot of that in their higher end boards. No, I mean it must be you. I checked and I'm not dropping any frames. I'm not like there's no latency. Everything looks fine on my end. But this is the one. This is the last Asus motherboard that I ever got. After that, I was like, no, they're kind of going up too far with the pricing. Because, so Asus went from 240 with the, 240 for the Crosshair 6 to I think 250 or 265, somewhere in there for the Crosshair 7. I don't remember what the Crosshair 7, the X470 was because I never got that board. But they went from $250-ish to $375. So they went by like $100, $115 upcharge, or somewhere around there on average, from X470 to X570. And that was when I started thinking, okay, that's a lot more expensive than... But, you know, everybody was saying, oh, it's expensive because it's the world's first PCIe Gen 4. You have Gen 4 on the graphics card slot. You had Gen 4 on the SSD slots. And nothing else had Gen 4. So if you wanted Gen 4, if you wanted to future-proof yourself, and granted, these boards have held up really well because these motherboards were new in 2019, and there was literally nothing else that could do Gen 4 until Rocket League. Now that I think about it, from Intel. Intel didn't catch up to AMD until 2021. That's kind of crazy to think about. That AMD had like pretty much almost a 2-year lead in terms of the platform advantage in terms of Gen 4. Like if you wanted Gen 4, you had to go with Zen 2 and then later Zen 3. You couldn't go with Intel if you wanted Gen 4 because, and you know, for SSDs, it kind of mattered, but for graphics cards, it didn't really matter because RTX 20 series was Gen 3. Yeah, it was Gen 3. So it's like if you had a 2080 Ti, it's like, yeah, you can get an AMD X570 and go to Gen 4, but your graphics card's not going to benefit from that at all. So it's more of like a future-proofing thing. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, X570 is one of the most long-lived motherboard chipsets because it, like, here's the secret. If you guys want to run SLI or Crossfire, in particular SLI from NVIDIA, if you want SLI, you have to stay on AM4. You can't go to AM5 because no AM5 motherboard supports SLI. Likewise, if you want to go to Intel, there hasn't been an Intel motherboard under $1,000 that has supported SLI for over 2 generations. I think Comet Lake had 1 or 2 Asus Extreme Maximus boards that had the license keys, and I think the MSI Godlike for Intel for I think Z490 or Z590 had SLI. But like Z690, there was only one motherboard that had SLI. And Z790 has no SLI. So multi-GPU is truly dead, as far as NVIDIA is concerned, in the consumer market, because you can't use a modern motherboard that will let you use your NVLink. You have to stay with AM4. So that is the reason why AM4 is kind of a secret sauce special that is a gift that keeps on giving, and it's never going to really become obsolete until they stop making DDR4, and until they stop making 5800X 3Ds and 5950X for multitasking. So, or I guess content creation. So a really good lineup, you know, like that's a really good chipset. It's lived a long life, for sure. So, but it was the last time I bought Asus. After that, because Asus went from $375 for a X570 Hero, Crosshair Hero 8 to $700 for the Crosshair Hero X670E. And when I saw that $700 price tag, you know, a year ago was Zen 4's launch. We're at the 1 year anniversary now. So about a year ago, I was contemplating what motherboard do I upgrade to from my X570 Hero. And I was thinking, okay, Asus, are we going to go Asus again? And I'm like, Crosshair $699? First, they made me go from 240 to 375. Now they want me to go from 375 to 700. I don't know if I can justify that jump. You know, considering that the Crosshair. Here, let's go look at that one. X670E Crosshair Hero. I mean, because there were times when I thought about getting this board. And I know RK has his board, and he likes his board. It's a good board, but, you know, when you're used to $375 for a Crosshair, and now you have to spend $700 for a Crosshair, it's a tough pill to swallow. And it really made me start considering other options. Mainly because this motherboard doesn't have an X4 slot that is independent of the graphics card. So it has an X8, which is nice, but you can't do SLI. There's no NVLink, there's no SLI. Crossfire is also pointless at this point. So there's no multi-GPU. They give you an X8, but the only thing you can really use with it is storage. But as soon as you use it for storage, now you lose half your lanes for your graphics card. So, you know, you see, this is the reason why I didn't go Asus this generation. I mean, I still trust Asus, regardless of what other people have said throughout this year. But, you know, that $699 sticker price is really high, and it's lacking some of the things that I really needed to have, namely an X4 slot. So, that's kind of why I ended up getting this. And I was never really a Gigabyte person. All I know is a bunch of people would hate on Gigabyte, especially Gigabyte graphics cards. I don't know how much of that is warranted or how much of that is backed up by real evidence, but all I know is I remember when Zen 4 was going to launch, and I was looking at the Crosshair, and I'm like, $700 is a lot of money. I got to think about my other options here. And you know what one of the other options ended up being? MSI Meg X670EAs. Probably the best motherboard there is. But it's another $700 motherboard. I strongly consider this. In fact, this is the one that I was supposed to get. It was like, this was supposed to be the chosen one. However, fate would have it on the day of the launch that I would end up getting the Master instead, just because the local Micro Center didn't have the Ace in stock when I needed to get the AM5 CPU. So that's how I ended up with a Master. I mean, but I knew going into the store, I already had researched what all of them can and cannot do. So it's like, this was my top pick, and this was kind of my backup, and I ended up getting my backup. Yeah, Ace is great. The Ace is great. This is still, in my opinion, this is still the best AM5 motherboard. Like, this one edges out everyone else. If I had to recommend another one for anybody that's also interested, only if money is not an option. There's another one that I would consider, but it's just too much. And that motherboard is the Crosshair Extreme from Asus. This one does it all. This one literally has it all. Everything that you could imagine, everything to your heart's content. The only thing that it can't do is it can't make you a sandwich. That's the only thing it can't do. But everything else it has. It has RGB. It has so much RGB This motherboard has so much RGB that it even has RGB on the M.2 Gen 5 heatsink. Even the heatsink itself has an LED screen. That is how extreme this motherboard has. The chipset cooling has an LED screen, an LCD screen. The VRM heatsink on the I/O shield, it has an LED screen or like an LCD. I mean, you look at that. It's got lights everywhere. It's got lights on the back. It's got lights on the side. It has the postcode debug. It has a start button. It has a whatever this button is, programmable button. You can tell the button to do whatever you want. If you want to go boot to safe mode, you press the button. You want it to be a hard reset, you let it be a reset button. So this one has it all, but it is $1,000. $1,000. So it's too much at the end of the day. But it does it all. There is nothing that so you guys know me. I'm basically a power user. I will load up all the USB ports that you can give me. All 10 USB ports on the back of the Aorus Master that I have are all currently in use. All 10 of them. The only ones that I still need to find a use for are the USB-C ones. But everything is full. Everything's maxed out. I'm using all my PCIe slots. I'm using all my SATA drive slots. I'm using all 4 of my M.2 slots. The board is full, is stacked. It's loaded to the max. So if the board can do everything that I can imagine needing it to do, then it is one of the best boards. And the Crosshair Extreme from Asus can do everything. It can do it all. It's the one motherboard that succeeds. It can do even the thing that the Ace cannot do. The Ace has a weakness. The Ace has one weakness. One weakness that keeps this board from being the perfect motherboard, even though it's still probably still the best motherboard. The weakness is no Thunderbolt. No USB 4. There's no USB 4 on the Ace. That is the one Achilles heel of this motherboard. But guess what? The Crosshair Extreme, dual 40 gigabit USB 4. It has it all. It literally, why is this their gallery? Like, this is the stupidest gallery. Where's your, dude, Asus has like the dumbest website. I'm trying to talk good about their product and they just make it like bad. Like, what is this? Where's their, I want to look at the back of the motherboard. I want to look at the I/O, and they're like, no, you can look at all these marketing pages instead. Really? Man, Asus. What? Good job. It's like fighting me as I'm trying to scroll through. Like, good job, guys. Yeah. Good job. Like, you know what? Where's the back? I want to see the back. That's the only picture they have of their back? Of the motherboard? This is terrible. Okay, hold up. Where's the... okay. It's going to vanish on the thing. Where is the USB? Really? Anyway, 2 USB 4. There, I found it, but that's not what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the... I would like to see a picture of the actual back of the motherboard. Or not the back. I want to see the I/O. All this useless info. Like, okay. Go to the gallery. There's the gallery. Doesn't help. This is the only picture that tries to show all the USB ports. Wow, somebody really needs to, like, educate whoever's in charge of the website because they really don't know how to make a functional website. You know what I'm looking for? I'll show you what I'm looking for. I just want to see this picture. Why can't I find this picture of the Crosshair Extreme? That's all I want to see. I just want to see this. I don't need to see 100 testimonials and all this overclocking garbage. Like, show me the actual back of the motherboard, please. Like, do you guys not have a picture of your motherboard? Like, good. Oh, wow. Okay. They don't have a picture. All right. Meanwhile, everybody else knows how to actually make a website to show off things that a potential buyer would be interested in. Because if you don't know how to buy a motherboard, like, the easiest thing I could tell you, okay, they did it correctly in their previous generation, but somehow they managed to fail so hard on such a simple test. Like, why does it have to load this little intro animation every single time I click on features? Okay, thank you. I finally managed to find it after, like, having to go through the most unintuitive way of finding it. Alright, so right there. Two 40 gigabit USB-C. Those are basically Thunderbolt ports. So you have 10 gig LAN. You have 2.5 gig LAN. So you have dual NIC. You have Wi-Fi 6E. Basically, you have everything. You have every single thing imaginable. You have the BIOS flashback button. You have the clear CMOS button. You have all these USB. You have the full audio, because a lot of motherboards nowadays do not have your rear and your sub and your center speaker. They only give you your mic, your line out, and your line in. Or they give you the mic, the line out, and the SPDIF, the Toslink, the optical. But ASUS gives you everything. So this is the no compromise. It does it all. So, like, if money was not an option, this is the motherboard that I would recommend. Unless you don't want 40 gig USB. If you don't want 40 gig USB, get the Ace. That's what I would recommend. It has 10 gigabit networking. But you know what? The Asus one has dual networking. So, indeed, it's for those that are. Yeah, so this is the one that has everything. It's the only motherboard that literally has no weakness. It does everything imaginable. It's just that it's so expensive. I just can't justify spending $1,000 on just a motherboard. That's the only problem that it runs into. Let's put it this way. If this motherboard was $700, if this was a $700 motherboard, like instead of the Hero being what it is at $700, if there was no such thing as the Extreme, if the Extreme was $700, I would have purchased this. I can see myself spending $700 for this, but not $1,000. $1,000 is kind of, that's where I draw the line. Like, 700 is kind of the absolute max, you know? Like, there's something about it being $1,000 that's just kind of over the top too much. So, what type of user buys this motherboard? Somebody who wants to use it as a professional workstation, because it does everything. You know, like, I could see myself using this motherboard. I'll give you an example. The dual LAN is very nice because the 10 gigabit port would go to a network switch that has it's basically a 10 gig switch that a NAS or a home server, or I mean, this could even be the home server. Basically, the 10 gig would go into the home network, and then the 2.5 could either go straight to the router for the internet, or you could use it in any other way, right? Like, it's nice to have it. Or, if you didn't have a 10 gig switch, you could connect the 10 gig straight to a NAS over 10 gig, or a home server, just direct connect it without a switch, and then you could have the 2.5 going to a regular, you know, like an 8-port switch, or any cheap switch, you know, from Micro Center or Amazon, like a $30 switch, and you would have that going out to the internet. So it's nice to have these things. And then the 40 gig USB is really good for an external 4K capture card. It's really good if you're using Thunderbolt 4 peripherals, because this is fully backwards compatible with those. A lot of people don't know that. But a power user like me, I know that. So, you know, like, I can find tons of use cases for this. It even has a 20 gig USB-C as well. So, I mean, it has convenience features like the clear CMOS on the back. That's really nice to have. It has the postcode debug. I mean, it better have the postcode debug considering it's $1,000. You know, Wi-Fi 6E, that's the latest standard. All the full audio, everything's there. All the drives. And on top of that, it has a PCI 4 slot that has 4 lanes. That's perfect for an internal capture card. So, or any other sort of peripheral that you want to connect that needs 4 lanes. You know, like if you want to do an expander card for a gen, or like an SSD, like an extra SSD. It also has the DIMM.2, so you could put a ton of SSDs in here. So it's really, really nice. It's the no compromise motherboard, but it's just extremely expensive. It even has the quick disconnect button for removing the GPU without having to stick, like a screwdriver in there to push the tab. If you have a giant air cooler like me, that's actually really nice to have, because it's annoying when you have a massive Noctua D15 right up against a graphics card, and you need to swap the graphics card out because you're going to benchmark a different one. So it's nice to have that little push button. So it's got everything that I can think of that someone like me could certainly benefit from. But I've been able to get by on a motherboard that basically costs half as much money at $500 just fine. What are the PCIe slots? Oh. They are... Alright, let's go back to the... Do we have a good picture of it? Okay. So it has Gen 5 X16, and then it has a shared X8 Gen 5 that steals lanes just like on the Ace. It basically has the same setup as the Ace. And then at the very bottom, it has a X4 slot. It says X1, but that's actually wrong. It's actually, I don't know why it says X1. It's actually X4. That is significant. That's the significant difference between the Extreme and the Hero. And that's the reason why the Extreme is actually the better one by leaps and bounds. Because see right here, chipset. Down here. It goes to the chipset though. It doesn't go to the CPU. PCI 4.0 X4 slot. That is, for me, that is a must-have. I will never buy a motherboard that does not have this. Because that's too important to have for expandability. So... It's got everything that I need. The only weird thing about it is this is physically an X4. It's not physically an X16. So that could be a deal breaker for some people. Best example I can give you is... Oh, this is super annoying. Why does it keep... Okay, best example I can give you is if I wanted to install the Intel Arc A770 or an A380 or the AMD RX 7600... as a AV1 encoder card, I would like to install it in that bottom slot because it's 4 lanes of Gen 4. That's enough for an encoder card. However, because this is physically X4, that would not work. I'd have to put the GPU in the X8 slot up here, and then that would then force my top graphics card to run it at X8. So, and then I wouldn't be able to use my X4 because it's a double slot GPU. So I can always poke holes in a product, no matter how perfect the product seems. I can always find some limitation, if you will. So in this case, this would have been better if the X4 at the bottom was a physical X16. That way I could plug a GPU in there. Even though I don't need all of the lanes, I only need like 4 of the lanes. But I could fit one there, right? You can't do that with this slot because they decided to make it an X4 physical slot, which is annoying. So Asus always somehow manages to do something that can cause them to lose points. But other than that, that's like the one thing. So that's me nitpicking. I'm grasping at straws here, trying to find something to criticize the board on, and that's all I can come up with. Other than the price. But, it basically does everything, so, I mean, in that regard, maybe the price is justified. Isn't that X4 dedicated? You can use all 3. Yes, it's dedicated. So yeah, you're right. I could install an expander card here as long as it's a single slot, and then I could still make use of the bottom slot with a capture card. So, but the nice thing about the back is that it already has 10 gig, it already has 40 gig USB. Basically has everything on the back, so you don't really need any sort of expander. You don't need a Thunderbolt expansion card. You don't need, potentially, you don't even need an internal capture card because you can plug an external one into the 40 gig USB. But, you know, it does a lot of stuff, so it's good. It's good, but then it's priced so high. But anyway, maybe we'll do some motherboard build advice videos, or I guess live streams in the future. Since it is that time, we are getting to that point in the year. We're about to go into Q4, and Q4 is mostly the holiday season. That's the one where most people will be looking to do builds or upgrades. That's the busy time of the year. So maybe we'll do like kind of a casual stream just talking about builds like motherboards, RAM recommendations, CPU recommendations based off of use case, etc. So, all right, well, that's all I really had for this live stream. I wanted to test frame generation, and yeah, Forespoken, the team at Forespoken and AMD, they did deliver on the promise of frame generation working as intended for the most part. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this live stream. I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. It has been fun. As always, I stream every evening on Thursdays. We usually go over tech-related news, and then we open up the panel for any sort of discussion in any sort of technology thing. And if I want to bring up or go in-depth on any particular topic, then we will use Paint. But if you guys have any questions at any point in the stream, feel free to ask them. I'm more than happy to answer on the technical side. But with that said, if you like technology, if you like this sort of in-depth, deep dive things that we do here, feel free to subscribe. I will say this channel is more of an informational channel than it is an entertaining channel. So if you're someone who is trying to learn more about like PC DIY, build advice, we can even go into overclocking discussions if needed. Just if you like that kind of stuff, definitely subscribe. It does help me out. It does keep you guys like in the loop on when videos go up on the channel and when the live streams happen like this. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Everybody have a good one, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care.